Hey everyone, here are some of my personal takeaways from the conversation that I had in episode 5 of Artistry with Heart featuring Dr. John Pickett. I loved this conversation because I love Dr. John Pickett so much. I had the great privilege of studying with him when I was pursuing my undergraduate degree at Central Washington University, and I just learned so much from him, and I am so deeply grateful for him seeing something in me when I didn't necessarily see it in myself. So if you haven't already listened to the episode, go ahead and check it out. You can find it wherever you find your podcast, and then meet me back here for some of the personal takeaways that I've been implementing into my daily practice, performing, and life. One of the first things that leapt out at me about this conversation with John was that he finds inspiration everywhere. He talked about how he is inspired by Paul McCartney's bass lines and how he's always looking for what he loves in other people's music and in other people's compositions, and then tries to then implement that into his own. And what I loved is that he finds inspiration in all genres, Beatles tracks and Young and all these different artists that spoke into his musicianship in an equal way that these other more academic studies did. And I just loved that he was always looking for ways to stay inspired. I loved the idea of summiting your own Everest. Obviously, we're not all going to perform in Carnegie Hall or perform 8 doctoral recitals from memory, but we don't need to, right? Like, I think each of us have different personal goals and we all have our own Everests. And as a performer and an educator, John was so adamant about helping people achieve their own personal best, whatever that looked like. It's all about a person's personal goal and what is most important to them and their values. I love this idea of defining your own Everest and summiting that rather than having one idea of success and beating your head against a wall trying to achieve something that maybe was never that important to you personally in the first place. The idea that he wanted to share what he knew as the underlying motivator for reaching the level of playing ability that he did was such an inspiring thing for me to hear personally. I have met so many performers who just want to perform or have to teach or whatever. John decided to pursue a doctoral degree because he wanted to share what he knew. He shares that when he went into college and got into Juilliard, he was behind the curve of other performers and players at that time, so he had to work extra hard. And he credits this desire to share what he knows with others because he freshly remembers what it's like to not know that thing. And so this excitement that he had about these discoveries that he was making that was allowing him to have these breakthroughs a little bit later on in life made him so excited to share this knowledge that he learned through performing that he then became a professor at a university for 33 years and arguably transformed the lives of hundreds of students that went on to become professional pianists because of him. Reaching a certain level so that you can teach at that level just totally shifts the perspective. And I, as an educator and performer myself, I really loved that recalibration of priority. There are so many great takeaways from this conversation, but his original piece, Titania, is absolutely stunning. And what I love the most, besides the very poetic lyrics, wonderful singing, and incredible piano accompaniment, is his push to write, compose, and sing his own original music after a full, successful career as a virtuoso classical pianist. I love that after Dr. John Pickett retired, he decided that he was going to start writing and singing his own original music. And that personally is so inspiring because it's very similar to my story. I went to school to be a classical pianist, and then over the course of years to come, I realized that in order to find more of my musical voice, I needed to start writing and singing myself. And that journey of finding your voice can feel so vulnerable and so painful at times, especially if you have this expectation or you're excellent in one area, that you then must be at the same level in all these other musical areas just vicariously. John never stops pushing himself to reach new heights and be on that growth edge as a musician so that he can keep learning. So I love that he was able to, after retiring from a very successful career as a classical pianist and professor of 33 years at a university, then move on to being a singer, songwriter, and composer. You're just gonna love this piece if you haven't already heard it. It's just, you just can hear his spirit singing through every word. I hope that you feel more supported and less alone on this creative path that requires so much courage and vulnerability. So I appreciate you being a part of my journey, and I can't wait to be more a part of yours.